A gunshot cracked through the autumn air as Isabella Summers clutched her bleeding shoulder, stumbling down the dusty main street of Helena, Montana Territory, 1878. Blood seeped through her tattered blue dress, leaving a trail behind her like crimson breadcrumbs. She had escaped, but for how long? The saloon doors behind her burst open, and the men who had tried to claim her as payment for her father's gambling debts spilled out into the street, their drunken shouts carrying on the evening breeze. "You can run, but you can't hide forever, Bella," one man hollered, his voice slurred with whiskey and malice. Isabella ducked between two buildings, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had never expected her life to come to this, running for her virtue, possibly her life, in a town where her family name now meant nothing but debt and disgrace. Her father had gambled away everything, including their ranch, before drinking himself to death just 3 days prior. Now, the vultures had come to collect what they believed was rightfully theirs. As she rounded the corner behind the general store, Isabella collided with something solid. A man. Strong hands steadied her, and she looked up into the most piercing green eyes she had ever seen. They belonged to a tall cowboy, his face partially shadowed by a well-worn Stetson. "Whoa there, miss," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "You're hurt." "Please," Isabella whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "They're after me. I need to get away." The cowboy assessed the situation quickly, his gaze moving from her bloodied shoulder to the sounds of the men searching nearby. Without hesitation, he led her to a chestnut mare tethered outside the store. "Can you ride?" he asked, already helping her up. Isabella nodded weakly, gripping the saddle horn as he mounted behind her. With a click of his tongue, the horse took off, carrying them away from Helena and into the gathering dusk. They rode hard for nearly an hour, the cowboy expertly guiding the mare through the rugged Montana landscape. Eventually, they approached a modest cabin nestled against the foothills, smoke curling from its chimney. "My place," he explained, helping her dismount. "Name's Isaac Jenkins. Most folks just call me Ike." "Isabella Summers," she replied, wincing as the movement jostled her injured shoulder. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Jenkins, but I can't stay. Those men will come looking, and when they find me here with you." Isaac's expression hardened. "Let them come. First, we need to tend to that shoulder." Inside the cabin, Isaac lit several lanterns, illuminating a simple but clean interior. He guided Isabella to a chair and carefully helped her remove her blood-stained shawl. The bullet had grazed her, leaving a nasty furrow across her upper arm. "This'll sting," he warned, producing a bottle of whiskey. Isabella bit her lip to keep from crying out as he cleaned the wound. His hands were surprisingly gentle for a man who clearly lived a rugged life. "Why are they after you?" he asked as he worked. Isabella closed her eyes. "My father. He had debts. Many debts. When he died 3 days ago, they came to collect, and the only thing of value he left behind was—" She couldn't finish. "You," Isaac supplied grimly. "They think they own you." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "The sheriff won't help. He's in their pocket. I have nowhere to go, no family left." Isaac finished bandaging her arm and sat back on his heels. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure something out." That night, Isabella slept in Isaac's bed while he took the floor near the fireplace. Despite her exhaustion, sleep came fitfully, haunted by dreams of pursuing men and her father's ghostly face. Morning dawned crisp and clear. Isabella awoke to find Isaac cooking breakfast, the smell of coffee and bacon filling the small cabin. "I can't impose on you," she said, sitting up. "They'll laugh if you keep me here. Worse, they'll kill you. These aren't men who give up easily." Isaac turned, spatula in hand, his expression resolute. "Then let them laugh till they're done. I've handled worse than a few drunken gamblers. You don't understand. These aren't just gamblers. Jasper Reed leads them. He practically owns half the businesses in Helena." Isaac's jaw tightened. "Reed, huh? I know the name. Been causing trouble for honest folk all over the territory." Over breakfast, Isabella learned that Isaac was a former Texas Ranger who had come to Montana 2 years earlier to start fresh. He raised horses on the small property and occasionally worked as a guide for hunters and travelers. "I don't have much," he admitted, "but what I have is honest earned." "I could perhaps find work in another town," Isabella suggested. "Billings, maybe," or even try for Denver. Isaac considered this. Reed's influence reaches pretty far. You might need to go farther than you think. A sudden commotion outside interrupted their conversation. Isaac moved to the window, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle mounted on the wall. Riders coming. 5 of them. He turned to Isabella. Stay inside. Isabella watched from the window as Isaac stepped onto the porch, rifle held casually but ready. The 5 riders approached slowly, dust billowing behind them. She recognized Jasper Reed at the front, his silver-trimmed vest gleaming in the morning sun. Jenkins, Reed called out. Word in town is you rode off with something that belongs to me. Don't recall taking anything that wasn't free to go, Isaac replied evenly. Reed sneered. The Summers girl. Her father owed me near $2,000. I'm collecting what's due. People aren't property, Reed. Not even in Montana territory. One of Reed's men spat on the ground. Her daddy signed papers. She's rightfully owed to Mr. Reed. Isaac's stance didn't waver. Any papers forcing a woman into servitude wouldn't hold up in any court worth its salt. Miss Summers is under my protection now. I suggest you boys ride on. Reed's face darkened. You always were troublesome, Jenkins. Thought you learned your lesson back in '75. Isabella's breath caught. These men had history. I learned plenty, Isaac replied, including how to spot a snake wearing a gentleman's clothes. Reed laughed, but there was no humor in it. 1 man against 5. Those aren't odds I'd bet on, Ranger. Then it's lucky I'm not asking you to place a bet, came a new voice. From around the side of the cabin emerged another man, rifle aimed squarely at Reed. Morning, Ike. Thought I heard some unwelcome visitors. Good timing, Ben. Isaac nodded to his neighbor. Mr. Reed here was just leaving. Another rifle barrel appeared from the trees, to the left a 3rd man Isabella hadn't noticed before. Reed's confident smirk faltered as he realized he'd walked into a situation less favorable than he'd anticipated. This isn't over, Jenkins, Reed growled, reining his horse around. That girl's got a price on her head now. You'd best remember that. After the riders disappeared down the trail, Isaac's friends introduced themselves to Isabella. Benjamin Cole and Thomas Whitfield were both ranchers from neighboring properties, alerted by Isaac earlier that morning. Reed's trouble, Ben said grimly, has been since he showed up 3 years back. Runs most of the gambling in Helena, and has the territorial judge in his pocket. What happened in '75? Isabella asked Isaac once they were alone again. Isaac's expression grew distant. I was investigating Reed for the Rangers. He was running guns to renegade Comanche. Got too close, and his men jumped me. Left me for dead in West Texas. He unconsciously touched a scar on his neck. That's when I decided to come north, start fresh. And now I've brought him back into your life, Isabella said softly. I'm sorry. Isaac shook his head. Don't be. Reed's the kind of man who doesn't forget enemies. We would have crossed paths again eventually. Over the next few days, Isabella recovered her strength. She helped around the cabin, proving herself handy with cooking and mending. Isaac taught her how to shoot his spare revolver, insisting she needed to protect herself. Your aim's natural, he observed after she hit 3 bottles in succession. Just like your spirit. Isabella blushed at the compliment. Something was growing between them, a connection neither had expected, but both felt with increasing certainty. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson, Isabella broached the subject they'd been avoiding. I can't stay here forever, she said. Reed won't give up, and I'm putting you in danger every day I remain. Isaac was quiet for a long moment. There's a stagecoach to Oregon next week. I have a friend in Portland who could help you get situated, find work. The suggestion felt like a physical blow. You want me to leave? Want? No. Isaac turned to face her, his eyes intense in the fading light. But I want you safe more than I want you here. What if I don't want safety if it means leaving? The words spilled out before she could stop them. Isaac's hand found hers, warm and calloused. Isabella, I've known you barely a week. And in that week, you've shown me more kindness and respect than any man ever has, she replied. Is it so strange that I might not want to leave? Before he could answer, a sharp crack split the air, and a bullet splintered the wood beside them. Isaac yanked Isabella to the floor of the porch as more shots followed. Inside, he hissed, pushing her toward the door while drawing his revolver. They scrambled into the cabin, and Isaac quickly extinguished the lamps. In the sudden darkness, Isabella could hear her own ragged breathing. "Reed?" she whispered. "Maybe," Isaac replied. "Or bounty hunters." Reed wasn't bluffing about putting a price on your head. For hours, they waited in tense silence. Occasionally, a twig would snap outside, or a shadow would move past a window. Isaac remained vigilant, pistol ready. Near midnight, a voice called out from the darkness. "We know you're in there, Jenkins. Send out the girl, and we'll leave you be." "Not happening," Isaac shouted back. "You boys are trespassing on private property." The response was another volley of gunfire. A bullet shattered a window, sending glass spraying across the floor. Isabella stifled a scream. "Back room," Isaac whispered. "There's a trapdoor under the rug. Root cellar. Go." "I won't leave you," Isabella protested. "Not leaving me, just giving me room to work." He pressed his spare revolver into her hand. "Anyone comes down those stairs who isn't me, you shoot. Understand?" Reluctantly, Isabella retreated to the bedroom. She found the trapdoor and descended into the cool darkness of the root cellar, leaving the door slightly ajar so she could hear what was happening above. More shots rang out, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Then a new sound, flames crackling. They were setting the cabin on fire. Isabella's heart pounded as she gripped the revolver. Smoke began to seep through the floorboards. Above her, she heard the sounds of struggle, a grunt of pain, then silence. Tears welled in her eyes as she imagined Isaac shot or captured. Suddenly, the trapdoor flew open, and a figure silhouetted against the orange glow of flames descended the stairs. Isabella raised the revolver with trembling hands. "It's me," came Isaac's voice, strained but alive. "We need to go? Now." He was clutching his side, blood seeping between his fingers, but still standing. Together, they slipped out through a narrow tunnel that led from the root cellar to the nearby creek bed. Behind them, Isaac's cabin burned against the night sky. "Who were they?" Isabella asked as they crouched in the shelter of some boulders. "Bounty hunters," Isaac grimaced. "3 of them. I got 2, but 1 escaped. Probably headed back to report to Reed." "You're hurt," she said, noticing again the bloodstains spreading across his shirt. "Just a graze," he lied, the pain evident in his eyes. "We need to keep moving. Ben's place is 2 miles north. We can shelter there." By the time they reached Benjamin Cole's ranch, Isaac was pale and stumbling. Ben took one look at his friend and hustled them inside, calling for his wife to bring bandages and hot water. "Bullet's still in there," Ben said after examining the wound. "Martha, get my surgical kit." Isabella held Isaac's hand as Ben dug the bullet from his side. Isaac remained conscious throughout, his grip tightening each time the pain intensified, but he never cried out. "You're the stubbornest man I ever met," Ben said as he finished stitching the wound. "Should have been a doctor with that tolerance for pain." "Had practice," Isaac replied weakly. "Sorry to bring trouble to your door, Ben." Ben waved away the apology. "Reed's been asking for a reckoning for years. Maybe this is finally it." For 3 days, Isaac recovered at the Cole Ranch, while Isabella rarely left his side. On the evening of the 3rd day, as she changed his bandages, he caught her wrist gently. "Thank you," he said simply. Isabella smiled. "I should be thanking you. You've saved my life multiple times now." "We saved each other," he corrected. His green eyes searched hers. "What I said before, about sending you to Oregon. I was trying to do the right thing." "And what do you think the right thing is now?" she asked softly. Before he could answer, Ben burst into the room. "Riders coming." At least a dozen Reeds brought reinforcements. Isaac struggled to sit up. "Get the women out the back way. Head for the sheriff in Bozeman. He's not in Reed's pocket." "You can't fight," Isabella protested. "We're not leaving you," Martha Cole added firmly. "Ben, get the wagon ready. We're all going." Within minutes, the Coles had loaded essential supplies into their wagon. Isaac, despite his injury, insisted on riding alongside on one of Ben's horses. "You'll tear your stitches," Isabella said, sitting beside him as he mounted. "Better torn stitches than caught by Reed," he replied grimly. They fled into the night, Ben driving the wagon with Martha and Isabella while Isaac and Thomas rode flanking positions. Behind them, Reed's men discovered the empty house and gave chase. The race through the darkness was harrowing. The wagon bounced and jolted over the rough terrain, and several times Isaac nearly fell from his saddle as pain seared through his wounded side. Gunshots echoed behind them, bullets whistling past. "There's a canyon ahead," Ben called out. "If we can reach it, there's a narrow pass. They'll have to come through single file." As they approached the canyon entrance, disaster struck. A bullet found one of the wagon horses, sending the vehicle careening sideways. Ben fought to control it, but the wagon tipped, throwing Isabella and Martha clear before crashing onto its side. Isaac was at Isabella's side instantly. "Are you hurt?" "No," she gasped, struggling to her feet. "Martha?" The older woman was shaken but uninjured. Ben and Thomas quickly unhitched the surviving horse. "We'll have to go on horseback," Ben said. "Two per horse. The pass is just ahead." Isabella rode behind Isaac, her arms wrapped around his waist, careful of his wound. They plunged into the narrow canyon pass, the walls rising steep and high around them. Behind them, Reed's men were closing in. "There." Thomas pointed ahead where the canyon opened into a wider valley. "We can make a stand there." But as they emerged from the pass, a surprising sight greeted them. A line of mounted men waited, rifles raised but not at them. "Marshal Thompson," Isaac called out in surprise. "What brings the U.S. Marshal all the way from Helena?" A stern-faced man with a silver badge rode forward. "Got word Jasper Reed was causing trouble again. Seems I arrived just in time." Reed's men, upon seeing the federal marshals, quickly surrendered. Reed himself tried to flee back through the canyon, but was captured. "Been waiting to arrest Reed for years," Marshal Thompson explained. "Got federal warrants for him on gun-running charges in 3 territories. Your friend Ben's ranch hand rode for help yesterday when he spotted Reed's men gathering." "Ben's hand?" Isaac looked confused. "You didn't send for the marshal?" Ben shook his head. Young Billy must have taken initiative when he saw those riders. Isabella felt a surge of gratitude for the unnamed ranch hand who had likely saved all their lives. As Reed was led away in handcuffs, he spat at Isaac's feet. "This isn't over, Jenkins. I've got friends you haven't even heard of." "It's over for now," Marshal Thompson said firmly. "And where you're going, your friends won't be able to help much." With Reed's capture, the immediate danger had passed. The marshal escorted them back to Helena, where Isaac's wound could be properly treated by a doctor. The town buzzed with news of Reed's arrest, and many citizens came forward with their own stories of his extortion and violence. "What will you do now?" Isaac asked Isabella as they sat in the hotel dining room a week later. His side was healing well, though the doctor warned it would be some time before he could resume full activity. Isabella considered the question. With Reed in custody, she was no longer in immediate danger, but the loss of her family home and fortune still left her without prospects. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "Perhaps I could find work here in Helena now that Reed's influence is gone." Isaac reached across the table to take her hand. "Or you could come back with me. I'll need help rebuilding the cabin." Her heart quickened. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Jenkins?" "I'm offering you a choice," he said seriously. "A partnership, if you want it. These past weeks have shown me something I've been missing since I came north. Someone to share the load, the dreams." He paused. "The life. People will talk," Isabella said, though her eyes shone. "A woman living with a man she barely knows, rebuilding his home. They'll laugh if you keep me," she added softly, echoing her earlier fears. Isaac's smile was gentle but determined. "Then let them laugh till they're done. I don't much care what people say, Isabella. I care what you say." "And if I say yes?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then we'll build something new. Together." 2 days later, they stood on the charred remains of Isaac's cabin. The structure was gone, but the stone chimney still stood, a testament to durability amid destruction. "It won't be easy," Isaac warned, surveying the work ahead. "Winter's coming." Isabella squeezed his hand. "I've never shied from hard work." With help from Ben, Thomas, and other neighbors, they began to rebuild. Isabella proved as adept with hammer and saw as she had with cooking and shooting. By the first snowfall, a new cabin stood on the old foundation, larger, sturdier, with extra windows that Isabella had insisted upon to let the light chase away old shadows. They were married by a traveling preacher in November, with half the county attending. Marshal Thompson himself came to witness the union, bringing news that Reed had been convicted and sentenced to 20 years in a federal prison. You two helped bring down one of the territory's worst criminals, he told them. Montana won't forget that. As winter settled over the land, Isaac and Isabella found rhythm in their shared life. She learned to break horses alongside him, discovering a natural affinity for the animals. He, in turn, learned to appreciate the small touches she brought to their home: wildflowers on the table, curtains at the windows, and the sound of humming as she worked. Spring brought new beginnings. Isaac's horse business flourished with Isabella's organizational skills complementing his training abilities. They planted a garden together, and Isabella began to teach the children from neighboring ranches how to read and write, using books Marshall Thompson sent from Helena. One evening, as they sat on their new porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky, Isabella rested her head on Isaac's shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking in a stranger that night, risking everything?" Isaac looked down at her, his green eyes warm with love. "Best risk I ever took. Even with the cabin burning down? Getting shot." He laughed. "Small prices to pay for finding you." Isabella placed his hand on her stomach, which had just begun to show the slightest roundness. "Well, then I hope you're ready for our next adventure." Isaac's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You're certain?" She nodded, smiling at his wonderment. "Doctor confirmed it yesterday. Come winter, there'll be 3 of us in this cabin." Isaac gathered her into his arms, his joy palpable. "I love you, Isabella Jenkins. More than I thought possible. And I love you," she whispered against his lips. "My protector, my partner, my home." As twilight deepened into night, they remained on the porch, planning and dreaming. In the distance, a coyote called, answered by another wild voices in a wild land. But inside their circle of lantern light, Isabella and Isaac had found what many never do: a love strong enough to weather any storm, face any adversary, and build something lasting from the ashes of what was lost. By the following autumn, their son Benjamin Isaac Jenkins entered the world, strong-lunged and healthy, with his father's green eyes and his mother's determined spirit. And when Isabella held him for the first time, with Isaac's arms around them both, she knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the greatest risks, and that some treasures are worth any price. 5 years later, the Jenkins Ranch had grown considerably. Isaac's reputation for fine horses spread throughout the territory, bringing buyers from as far as St. Louis. Isabella's small school now had a proper building, funded by grateful parents and a territorial education grant. Little Ben, now joined by his 2-year-old sister Sarah, raced around the expanded homestead, their laughter a constant melody. What had begun as a desperate escape had transformed into a life neither Isabella nor Isaac could have imagined that fateful night in Helena. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Isaac would take Isabella's hand and lead her to their porch. Together they would look out over the land they had tamed together, at the life they had built from nothing but courage and determination. "Remember when you said they'd laugh if I kept you?" he would ask. And Isabella would smile, leaning into his embrace. "And you said to let them laugh till they're done. Seems they're done laughing now," Isaac would reply, his voice full of pride and love. For in the end, what had once seemed impossible had become their reality, a testament to the power of 2 hearts united against all odds, finding their way home in each other's arms.